These are this afternoon's top stories. Cabinet working for small and medium-sized businesses. Dominica rebuilds 1 month after Erica and 8-year-old killed over puppy. Good afternoon and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Friday, 9th October 2015. I'm Carla Berridge. In national news, small and medium-sized businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis were in the spotlight during the most recent sitting of the federal cabinet. ZIZ News understands that that body will be expanding stimulus packages and providing concessions for some businesses. On Friday morning, Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, Lesroy Williams, revealed that Cabinet has agreed to extend the duty-free scheme for standalone restaurants for an additional year. This is in addition to providing concessions for some small and medium-sized enterprises, namely Whoosh Bumper Cars, Synergy SKN, Seahorse Enterprises, Bird Rock Beach Hotel, and Oasis Investment Limited. Meanwhile, Cabinet has also approved the establishment of Ketty Medical Center and Pain Management. ZIZ News will have an update on the status of those businesses in a subsequent newscast. The Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force's new Director of Public Information says the organization has stories to tell. During an interview with ZIZ News on Thursday, Grell Brown said the general public can expect to see some more features about the force.
One of the things you'll see coming out of this office in the near future is the personalization of the force. We have a lot of officers in the police force or outlying stations where the officers are doing great things in their communities that we may not hear about. And one of the objectives that we're going to be pursuing is telling those stories.
Brown is of the view that there is much more to the police officers than fighting crime, and he believes it is important that their stories are shared with the local community.
We want to let people know that other than crime fighting, our officers are embedded in the communities, they're doing great things, and they're living up to their roles as citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Brown was recently appointed as Director of Public Information for the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force. He takes over from Inspector Lyndon David, who served as Public Relations Officer. Today is World Post Day, and the local post offices are pulling out all the stops. As part of the observance, the staff is showing its gratitude to clients as they also celebrate Customer Appreciation Day and the launch of the GPO's United States Mailbox Service. Nicole Agard, who is spearheading the new service, said the pilot testing, which began several months ago, has proceeded well, and management is now ready to offer the service to a wider audience. Giveaways, light refreshments, and several raffles are included in the events planned for the main offices in Bastia and Charlestown. Regionally, the government of Dominica is facing a $1.3 billion rebuilding tab and a housing resettlement program of monumental proportion. That is according to Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, whose comments came just over 6 weeks after the devastation wrought by Tropical Storm Erica. Alliston Kentish takes a look at the relief and rebuilding efforts of a country whose people have declared that they are down but certainly not out.
When the cameras stop rolling, volunteers return home, and the next big story consumes the headlines, those left behind in times of tragedy quietly try to pick up the pieces and rebuild. And so it is with some of the Dominicans hardest hit by Tropical Storm Erica. Their losses are many. Loved ones, possessions, homes, and for others, an entire community. While many areas received a pounding, nowhere was the destruction and death toll as grave as the southeastern village of Petit-Savan. Fabian Fontaine lost 9 family members to Erica, including his mother, father, sister, and brother. Their bodies, like many others, have not been found. Many are simply grateful to be alive today and to tell their stories, but for them, life will never be the same again. 6 weeks on, the villages of Butika and Delis remain cut off from the rest of the island. Relief supplies come to residents via cable, and some make the trek across a gorge to get to their family and friends. On Wednesday, October 7th, the Prime Minister led a delegation on a site visit. A visibly wary Peter Sejean, MP for the area, gave an update on the situation.
The engineers have advised are putting the information together, and based on what we get from them, we will determine the most likely option to create access for the people of Dalis and Whitaker.
Tough times ahead for Dominica. Revenue has taken a nosedive and expenditure is rising. Now the government must find over $1 billion to rebuild. So where exactly is the silver lining in this situation? The country's Prime Minister says it lies in the humanitarian effort for Dominica and in the organizations, people and governments coming forward to help in the time of need.
The Bahamas' government is calling for greater accountability from those agencies responsible for communication during the hurricane season.
Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Perry Christie, is not backing down from his statement that Hurricane Joaquin and our response to the storm has brought about some important teachable moments. Mr. Christie explained to reporters while on Acklands there are lessons to learn regarding response mechanisms. He was adamant that we must address deficient communications.
It is not acceptable to go into areas in our country where electricity has failed and people do not have satellite phones. All right? And so, look, it is what it is, and we have to be able to learn from it and be critical about it and whatnot. I've had to promise that I will fly back into this area satellite phones, all right, because quite frankly they ought to have been there.
Mr. Christie accepts that this storm came with little warning and formed literally overnight. Yet he says there's no room for excuses as the government must ensure the necessary framework is in place.
And even though this is a surprise, we have to be able to anticipate that in emergencies and disasters, communication goes, and we have to have trusted people with the capacity to be able to say what is happening. That's the only way we can exist in this country properly.
Telecommunications wasn't the only avenue that failed. According to the Honourable V. Alpha Gray, whose constituency of Michael was among those with mass devastation, communication and tracking the storm collapsed, and as a result, someone should be held accountable. On Thursday, Cabinet met, and as they chart the way forward, the Member of Parliament from Michael will be looking for greater accountability in the wake of what transpired with Hurricane Joaquin.
Internationally, a family in Tennessee is mourning the death of an 8-year-old girl who was shot and killed over a puppy. CNN's Victor Blackwell reports.
Hold and kiss your babies every night because you never promised the next day with them.
Latasha Dyer cannot hold or kiss her 8-year-old daughter Michaela tonight because the third grader was buried earlier today.
I can't get her back. I want her back in my arms. This is not fair.
Just days ago, Michaela Dyer was an adventurous girl playing in her small mobile home park in White Pine, Tennessee, roughly 40 miles east of Knoxville. Saturday evening, the adults were inside watching football as Michaela and other neighborhood kids were playing with their new puppies. An 11-year-old boy who lived next door joined them. In an instant, tragedy struck. Wayne Joslin lives just yards from the families.
The little boy said he wanted to pet the puppies, and they said no and kind of laughed a little bit, and giggled. And that's when he pointed a BB gun at them. He misfired or something, and he threw it down in the grass. And he went and got the shotgun, and he just shot the little girl in the chest area, or close to the heart.
A shot fired from inside his home, according to investigators. Parents, startled by the gunfire, rushed outside and found little Michaela as she lay dying.
I can't get that picture out of my head, her laying there.
First responders were unable to save Michaela, the grass still stained with the third grader's blood.
I don't want anybody to step on it right now, and to show some kind of respect,
The accused shooter was immediately taken into custody.
The 11-year-old boy has been brought in and charged by juvenile petition for first-degree murder.
Bond has been set at $500,000. The fifth-grade boy is the youngest child in custody at this facility with the most serious crime, just 11 years old, but he may still be charged as an adult. The Jefferson County Sheriff says the boy took the 12-gauge shotgun from an unlocked closet in his family's home.
Yes, the 12-gauge shotgun was identified as belonging to the 11-year-old's father.
The boy's parents have not been charged, but that could change. The district attorney has not yet decided. For now, this small community is reeling for both families, both struck by unbelievable tragedy.
Pray for both families, and they all need help.
Victor Blackwell, CNN, White Pine, Tennessee.
A rash of individual attacks between Palestinians and Israelis are threatening to spread throughout Israel as tensions increase. In Jerusalem, Israeli security forces brace themselves for more unrest, barring young Palestinian men from a sacred Jerusalem Old City site in an attempt to restore calm.
4 more stabbing attacks in Israel on Thursday have led to fears of further violence after the conclusion of Friday prayers, so Israel's stepping up security and warning people to be vigilant. 2 Palestinians were shot dead, one in Tel Aviv when he attacked a small group with a screwdriver, and another in Jerusalem. We are in the midst of a wave of terror. There's no magic solution, and the actions we're taking will not yield instant results. But with methodical determination, we will prove that terror does not pay, and we will defeat it. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has appealed for people not to militarize protests, but clashes are erupting like wildfires in the West Bank too. Israel's erecting steel barriers and metal detectors around the most sensitive sites, and increasing security details near the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Israeli police say that this metal detector is to check anyone they're suspicious of, despite the fact that in this street there's a military presence every couple of meters, and the whole street has 40 to 50 security cameras. This is the Israeli failure here. Even with bans on politicians, officials and anyone under 50 from attending prayers at Al-Aqsa, it remains a focal point for protest. Today will be a test of people's restraint and resolve, although right now that looks in pretty short supply.
And now taking a look at the weather. Today will be partly sunny with light and isolated showers, possible with temperatures reaching a high of 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Seas are moderate with waves not exceeding 6 feet, and winds are blowing easterly at 12 to 17 miles per hour. Tonight is expected to be partly cloudy with a low chance of showers. Sunset this evening is expected at 5:54 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:03 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kyla Berridge.